when you take into account the fact that we have this 3% inflation number right here, the value of your money gets gets less powerful and less powerful and less powerful, right? And so when you look at the value of your money from that perspective, in order to maintain your same standard of living, you have to be able to have access to $188,000 a year. That's just to maintain your standard of living that you're used to today. Hey, what's going on, Cash Flow Hackers? This is Chris with Life 180, and for this video, I want to ask you a question. Are you ready for your retirement goals? Are you on track for your retirement goals? Are you in a position to actually succeed with your money? And, with that, the answer that I get from most people is, well, I have no idea. I have no idea what that even means. I think I'm doing well. I'm saving. I'm putting money away. I feel like I'm doing everything I can. I'm doing what Dave Ramsey tells me to do. So I should be doing okay. And so this video is going to be really exciting. I have a calculator that it's been a while since I've used it, but I love this thing. I'm super proficient with it, and I love going through it. I love talking to people about it because it gives a lot of clarity about what's going on. And you can see down here, I just wanted to start. I'm not going to bounce around a whole lot. You can see this is one of the most powerful things to understand. If you can get through this and you can really understand what's going on here, I think it'll make a lot of sense. So let's walk through this, set the stage of kind of the rules of engagement here for what we're talking about. So I'm taking a 40-year-old, somebody who's about my age, wants to retire at 65. They expect to live, I'm going to actually put it 90 because it keeps going up, and I'd rather be over-prepared than under, so I'm just really conservative in that way. Current income is $100,000. Annual savings, or saving 10%, is $10,000. Let's say you're about like the average American, you got about $50,000 saved. If you got more, that's fantastic. We could talk about what that looks like. Your assumed rate of accumulation is about 8% right now, so we're saying I'm buying into the long-term averages of the S&P 500 that you're going to get 8%. Distribution rate of 4%, and that is what it is, right? So the distribution rate is basically based on Monte Carlo simulations. They say you shouldn't be withdrawing more than 4% at any given time from your portfolio. Otherwise, you're putting it at a serious amount of risk. Inflation, I have at 3%. Now, the reason I have inflation at 3%, as you can see here, I can pick any two dates here. I'm going to go back to 1980 here, right? So from 1980 to 2020, average rate of inflation was 3.17%, right? So it's pretty cool. If I go back from 2020 all the way back to 1950, the average rate of inflation is 3.45%. Now, inflation recently has been low until now. Of course, now we're seeing pretty high inflation. And I think one of the reasons is, and I think there's a lot of reasons, we've been printing a lot of money. That's not what this video is all about. I'd go on a total rabbit hole there. But recently, one of the factors here is inflation has been artificially low over the past decade for a lot of reasons. And so 1.72, and so we're kind of catching up for that. Now, so I'm going to use 3% just for the sake of that. That's really conservative at this point in time. Now, the tax rates, the thing to understand about, I didn't want to click on that. The tax rates, I'm just going to assume a 0% tax rate in that. We're going to assume the best case scenario, which is not going to happen, but I don't want to get into nickel and diming about what tax rate bracket you're in or anything of that nature. So what we're seeing here is that, if you had any defined benefits, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to add in Social Security, right? And let's say you're going to get a $30,000 a year benefit out of Social Security. You're going to get a 2% cost of living adjustment. You're going to start at 67 years old. You're going to end at 100 years old. We'll just say it. We're going to say right now, if you're doing that, it's about 85% taxable in that city. You know what? No, we're going to say 0% taxable just because I'm going to pretend that it's not. And that is going to be what it's going to be. So I'm going to assume that is your only defined benefit is Social Security. You don't have any other future assets or expenses. I'm not getting into any of the inherited money. Let's just talk about this from a very base level. But I did want to include the Social Security just because I think if you're somebody who wants to participate in that or believes it's going to be there, I don't want to leave you hanging. Now, I'm personally not banking on Social Security for anything because I don't necessarily have the faith and trust that it's going to be there. And so what we have now is we have $100,000 income, $10,000 savings. That means our current lifestyle equals your income minus taxes and annual savings. You know, where we're going right now. That's what your lifestyle is. Now, if I wanted to put you in a 24% tax bracket, what it would do is say your current lifestyle is $68,400. Most people are not there. You might be in a 12% marginal tax bracket, which is probably where you would be after everything's said and done in that if you're married, filed jointly, and you're in the 79,000 lifestyle. So for the sake of this, I'm going to keep it simple, and we're going to go from there. People spend way more money than they think they do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to the spreadsheet in the output of what this is and get into something that I think is really important for you to understand. So what you're looking at here is ultimately a historical situation that is following the rules and the inputs that we entered before. Now, if you've seen this, I always talk to people is like, do you know the 4 toughest questions when it comes to planning for your retirement? Very few people, like nobody knows them, right? Like I've asked over 1,000 people, nobody knows the answers to these, right? And so I'm going to get into those in a second for your benefit, right? So what we have here is, you could see year 1, we got 64,000. Why is it 64? Because I said we have an 8% return is what our assumed accumulation rate was. We started with 50,000, we're saving $10,000 a year, and then we had a rate of return on the money that we had invested. And so this is just going to keep growing based on the fact that we're saving $10,000 a year and the 8% average rate of return. Now, there's no down years in this. There's no really big years. So this is obviously not real life, but it is what it is. So what this is showing is that you're going to get to a place at 65 when you want to retire, because you know, I had you waiting till 67 to take to turn on your social security for a lot of reasons, but this has you retiring at 65. You could kick off retirement until 67 to match social security if you wanted to, and I'll get there and I'll show you what that would look like. But here's the deal. A lot of people, and this is what I always talk about, Dave Ramsey always talks about becoming a millionaire, saving, becoming a millionaire, and it's really great. Savers are losers. That's what Robert Kiyosaki says. And right here, this is why savers are losers, because you can't save your way to wealth. Why? Because you're fighting inflation. I showed you the inflation numbers. Just like 1980, money went a lot further than it does for you today, right? So what we have here is, you can see you have $1.369 million. So from Dave Ramsey's perspective, you would be wealthy, right? Like you would have over $1 million. You should be totally good because all of your lifestyle expenses, everything goes down. But here's the problem. If you're used to living on $90,000, well, when you take into account the fact that we have this 3% inflation number right here, the value of your money gets gets less powerful and less powerful and less powerful, right? And so when you look at the value of your money from that perspective, in order to maintain your same standard of living, you have to be able to have access to $188,000 a year. That's just to maintain your standard of living that you're used to today. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go down through this, and it shows this is your annual lifestyle plus your defined benefits, right? So what you're doing is you're going to have Social Security kicks in, and it's contributing with this. But you can see with this plan, based on how much money you need with the increase of inflation every year, you are basically effectively broke by the time you're 73. I don't know about you, but that's not much of a retirement, right? Ironically, when they first created Social Security, they only banked on people work so long that they only expected people to be alive for about 7 years after retirement. But here we are. So the bottom line is, in most people's eyes, this would be a model of success. Somebody getting to retirement with over $1.3 million, they would think they're successful. So the question is, these are the 4 questions that I want to walk through. Doing what you're currently doing, do you know what rate of return you have to earn on your money to get to where you want to go? Most people don't know that question. And here's the deal. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to increase your rate of return, and I'm going to say calculate the rate of return required. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to go till 90. Include the amount, and by the way, 90 is still risky. I have family members, multiple, that are living past 90. My great grandmother lived till 98, right? Like, so I don't want to plan on 90 personally, but I'm gonna, for the sake of this, so people, I don't get any pushback, I'd rather be overly conservative, and people say, Chris, that's not good enough. Like, I think you should be more conservative and plan to 100 than going to 100 and having people say, oh, nobody's gonna live to 100, you know? So I'm gonna calculate this. So what this says is, doing what you're currently doing, you need to earn 13.95% rate of return. That's basically, you're taking on 74% more risk. So if I went to you and said, hey, you can get there, but the only way to get there is to take 74% more risk. You have to take almost 100% chance of failure to accomplish your goals. Are you going to want like a 1 in 4 chance that by taking on that risk, you'll actually achieve it without going broke in the process? Right? Is that a risk that you're willing to take? I don't think the answer is yes for most people with that, right? So like that alone is not going to get you where you want to go, right? So this is assuming that during retirement, you know, oh no, I'm not going to do that. So this is assuming, once again, we're taking that 4% withdrawal in retirement, because that is what it is. So now what you can see here when you look at the spreadsheet is the left column is the present, and the right is what we've adjusted to. So by getting to 3.95 million, it gets you to 3,772,000, actually 3,816,000 at retirement. And then once again, you start pulling that 188,000, but based on the 4% rule, that's where we are. And as you can see here, your money lasts until 90 years old. The last year you're alive on this planet in this situation, it's going to cost you $394,000 because of inflation to maintain your standard of living. That sounds like a huge number. I think people that are making $100,000 a year right now, the idea that it's going to take you almost $400,000 to maintain your standard of living is probably something that is just feels very out in left field to them. But I think if you just reverse engineer that and you go back to the fact that, you know, in the 60s, to go buy a Corvette, it was under $10,000, right? Like a Chevy Corvette, under $10,000. Now it's $140,000 for that same Corvette, right? So like when you look at it, and you compare those types of things, and when you look at the cost of a house in the 60s and the average income in the 60s, and you compare it to today, all inflation is going to do is compound things, right? It's going to make it worse and worse and worse, right? It's going to make these numbers, you know, get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the bigger they get, the faster they grow. That's the idea of compounding. So inflation compounding works against us, like we want compounding to work for us when we're saving. So it's important to really understand that. And so let's just say, okay, you know, let's face it, I'm not going to take that kind of risk. I don't want to. So let's just get back to square one here, and we'll say, okay, now I need to save more, right? Like, so, okay, I'm willing to save more. Like, so if you don't know what rate of return, you know, you have to earn on what you're currently doing, which now I just gave you that. So do you know how much more money you have to save to get to where you want to go? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this. Once again, we're going to go till 90 years old. So what this is saying is that doing what you're currently doing with your current set of expectations and assumptions at 8%, you have to save $2,819 per month to get to where you want to go. That's an extra $33,000. That's not an extra. That's a total of $33,000, almost $34,000 a year. Now, if you're making, you know, $100,000 a year, that's a huge percentage of your income, right? Like that for most families in North America, that is not a possibility. And now once again, you look over here, the numbers work out to be the same in this column, and it is what it is. Your defined benefit with Social Security keeps going, you know, in case you do outlive, but that would be a significant drop in income. Now, you can see here, obviously, I don't think most people are going to be able to do that. So, okay, so I get it. You know, you realize you're not going to be able to earn the money you need. You realize you're not going to be able to save what you need. So do you know how much longer you're going to have to work? Well, let's calculate that. In this scenario, you're not going to be able to retire at 65 anymore. You're going to have to retire when you're 75. So you're going to have to work an extra decade. Now, in that scenario as well, what it looks like is, you know, you're going to be able to be in a situation where you're putting yourself at risk. So you're not getting to be able to, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. You're not going to be in a situation where you can even guarantee that you can, you know, work until you're 75, because we know that when we hit 65, 60 plus, health things happen that are out of our control all the time, right? And so the likelihood of that being the case, and you can see here your defined benefit kicks in at 67. You can do that, your Social Security, which is great. That helps you contribute. It does some good things for you. But then you get to 90 and you're out of money again, and that is what it is. So now the question is if you do nothing, if you don't change anything, how much of a reduction in lifestyle, how much less are you going to have to spend? You're going to have to take a 56% reduction in lifestyle just to survive, right? I don't know about you, but if I had to tell my wife that at retirement I was going to have to take a 50% reduction in lifestyle, she'd probably take care of that situation and get the life insurance a little sooner, right? I don't know a woman alive that wants to do that. And now let's make this a little worse here. Let's go to the 3.45% assumption, right? What happens is we actually wind up in a worse position. Our money gets less effective for us. So the thing that we need to understand here, right, is we got to get our money working for us. It's all about financial efficiency. We have to get our money working in ways where we can leverage it and increase the efficiency in our life and stop chasing these big returns. It's not about this return. It's not a matter of how big of a rate of return can you get in your account. It's about that financial efficiency. And instead of trying to save a high percentage of our money and getting instead of trying to save a small percentage of our money and chasing that big return, looking at the rest of the money, that 90% of money that is going through our life, and make that operate 2 to 3% more efficiently. And if we could do that, we can get to where we want to go without the risk. And so, I'm not going to get into that for this video, but just know, if you want to see that, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Click on the bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video, because I'm going to be putting out video content on this topic, educating people on how to accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life without taking any more risk, without taking on this crazy risk that you need to take in the markets to get to where you want to go. So I hope you found value in this. If you did, please smash that like button. Until next video, have a blessed, inspirational day, and we'll talk soon.